Good evening. I'm Saul Saenz, and welcome to this edition of ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. Tonight, a special edition where we talk to the El Paso Sector Chief Patrol Agent, Gloria I. Chavez.
Good to see you again. Thank you.
We met Chief Chavez at the Border Patrol Station on Montana near Hawkins. Chavez took command of the El Paso Sector in 2020 as the 2019 migrant surge began winding down, either because of President Donald Trump's immigration policies or the pandemic. Chavez became the head of all Border Patrol enforcement operations along 264 miles of the border from New Mexico to West Texas. Okay, Chief, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us.
Of course, thank you.
So much has happened since in this 1 year when everyone was boarded up and hunkered down and whatnot. And now we're starting to see another surge. We're actually in the middle of seeing another surge. How different is this surge that we're seeing now as opposed to the 2018 and 2019 surge?
So thank you first and foremost for the opportunity to share with you some insight on what's going on at the border here locally, right, with us. So this migration surge that we experienced this fiscal year, FY21, which for us starts October 1st to date, that's how our fiscal years run, is a little bit different than the one from FY19. You know, in fiscal year 19, we had 182,000 people that we encountered on that border and that we temporarily processed and detained and then cared for to the best of our ability back then, 182,000. In FY20, we get a pandemic, the global pandemic of COVID-19, that starts impacting us in the United States as well, and actually right here on our border. Dramatically, we get totals of people, about 56,000 people that are encountered here in the sector during that time. And now here we are in FY21, and we're back up, right? Up until today, we've had 113,000 encounters on the border. The majority of those encounters, Saul, are single adults. It's not the families. It's not the children.
Which is what we were
FY
seeing back then.
2019.
Yeah, which is what we were seeing
And that's
back
the
then.
difference, right? In 2019, we had many families. We had children and families crossing our border. The largest group ever in Border Patrol history, 1,000 people that were apprehended right at the border here in the El Paso station.
Yeah.
FY21, we're seeing a migration surge, but the majority of the nationals coming are single adults. We are still in this region seeing families and children more than families, but single adults still take the lead along the southwest border and here in the El Paso sector.
Has the country of origin changed? Because back then, it was mostly people from El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala.
Agreed.
Has the country of origin changed?
So countries of origin has changed. We now have, still Mexican nationals leads the number of nationalities that we've encountered here on the border, right? But followed by them is Guatemala, and then third, Ecuador. But Ecuador is catching up very quickly to people from Guatemala. So what we're seeing is a high concern for me is these nationals coming from Ecuador. If you remember, Saul, here a few weeks ago, there was 2 little girls that were dropped off that border barrier.
Literally?
Yeah, like 14 feet high. And those 2 little girls were from Ecuador. There's a criminal organization out there that is profiting from smuggling these vulnerable populations like children and even families here to our border region. And that's the concerning part of this whole smuggling enterprise, right? That it involves vulnerable populations, and we're seeing that nationality go up very quickly. There's an uptick of Ecuadorian nationals crossing right here through our border.
We know that back in 2019, 2020, early part of 2020, a lot of the migrants who were coming across were seeking asylum from those 3 countries because of conditions that they were telling us about back in their country of origin. Are we having the same thing out of Ecuador, where they're seeking asylum for the same reasons?
And we are not. I think that the families that are coming from Ecuador or the single adults, right, or even children, many of them are unaccompanied children, they're not necessarily seeking asylum. They are coming here as a journey, migrating north, and then looking for ways to stay in the United States. With the children, obviously, it's a very sad situation because they're unaccompanied. And they come from so far away, Ecuador, that they don't know anyone. They literally just show up at the border, turn themselves into agents or walk towards an agent that's there on patrol, and then our agents immediately get in touch with our central processing center, and that's where they transport the child so that we can actually ensure the child is okay. We've got medical personnel at the facility now, and medical personnel evaluates them before we take them in, hold them. They have the opportunity to shower. We keep them clean. We keep them fed. We keep them safe.
Let's talk about, and I hate to use this term speaking to you about manpower, but let's talk about Border Patrol agents and officers. Back then, you all were stretched thin in terms of the CBP had to take away time from the ports of entry and help out Border Patrol agents and whatnot. What is the situation like in terms of guarding the border here in El Paso?
So for us, we're still in the same place as we were before. With migration surges, our manpower is really stretched thin. Our agents, a lot of times, are tasked with so many responsibilities, so many duties, that pulls them away from the border. When we have high number of people crossing our border, like families and children, to be cared for and processed and work with other agencies, because at the end of the day, Saul, Border Patrol is not responsible for the front end, which is the migration push, right, at the border. And then Border Patrol agents are not responsible for the disposition of where people are going to end up. We're only responsible for the middle part, the temporary processing and care of people while they're in our temporary custody. So one of the things that I always try to talk to my employees about, especially the agents that are at the Central Processing Center processing, our national security mission will always be our #1 priority. But while we have these high numbers of migrants, like families and children, we're always going to do our best to get an A+. We're going to keep them fed, we're going to keep them clean, we're going to keep them safe and healthy. And we're going to try and process them as quickly as possible so we can get them on to their next step during this process. But what happens with situations of migration surges, it pulls away Border Patrol agents that are critical for our national security mission, leaving our front line very thin. So I will always be an advocate to say we need more agents. But one of the things that for us is critically important is a new position that we just acquired as well.
I was going to ask you about that, the administrative position.
Yes. These positions that we just acquired are called Border Patrol Processing Coordinators. This is a civilian position. It's not meant to be a law enforcement position. That is the job of a Border Patrol agent on the border. This civilian position, people are assigned at the Central Processing Center. At the Central Processing Center, they handle an array of administrative duties to include some of the things that a lot of times agents get boggled down with, delaying the processing and transfer of people to other agencies. So we're really excited about this position. I just entered on duty Class 3 for the El Paso region. And one of my proudest things to say always, especially with folks like you that are interviewing me today, is that these are people from our community, from our El Paso region that applied for these federal jobs. It's an opportunity for them to have a federal career. And many of them have taken that opportunity, stepped up. They have gone to the Border Patrol Academy, and they have trained for 7 weeks, and they've graduated, coming back here as a civilian employee of the federal government.
Okay, Chief Chavez, we're going to take a really quick break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Chief Chavez. One of the main questions I want to ask is just how busy the Santa Teresa area or port of entry is. We'll be right back. This is ABC-7 Xtra, where news comes first.
You've got enough to think about maintaining. Good thing the 2021 Volkswagen Tiguan has a lower cost of maintenance than Toyota RAV4. Come into your Volkswagen dealer today and get 0% APR financing for 60 months on the 2021 Tiguan.
The team at Academy Sports and Outdoors has been stocking up for the best gifts for Dad this Father's Day with Dad's favorite sports brands or gear for the camping trip he's always wanted to take. Give Dad the gift of fun memories you'll cherish forever. Happy Father's Day from Academy Sports and Outdoors.
The summer vibes have arrived at Casa Kia.
Soak in the savings with incredible offers on any new Kia.
With our exceptional service, you can kick back, relax, and enjoy your new ride.
We've got 2021 Kia K5s with 0% APR for 60 months.
And we want your trade. Come see us today for max value on your trade-in when you trade up. Start your summer off right at Casa Kia.
Or online at casakia.com.
Our casa is to Casa, here at Casa Kia.
There's a reason ABC-7 is the team you know
And the team you trust. We know your time is valuable.
That's why we strive to bring you context, depth, and perspective to each story that you won't find anywhere else.
So many people at ABC-7 have made it their life's work to bring you timely, accurate news and information you count on.
The team you know and trust is deeper and more committed to you than ever.
That's why at ABC-7, news comes first.
The Q. El Paso's best rock. With the Buzz Adams Morning Show. Streaming at KLAQ.com. And the 95.5 KLAQ mobile app.
You've got enough to think about maintaining. Good thing the 2021 Volkswagen Atlas and Atlas Cross Sport have a lower cost of maintenance than Toyota Highlander. Come into your Volkswagen dealer today and get 0% APR financing for 60 months on the 2021 Atlas.
Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra. Joining us is Border Patrol Chief Chavez. Thank you so much for taking time to talk to us. We're going to continue our conversation. One of the things that I mentioned before we went to break is just how busy Santa Teresa is, the port of entry there. And as a matter of fact, it's one of the busiest in the nation. You want to elaborate on that?
That is correct, Saul. So El Paso sector, I always say, the El Paso sector is a big deal sector. We are centrally located on the southern border with Mexico. We're very busy a sector. We have been historically for many years. However, this year, Santa Teresa, New Mexico is our area of focus. It is our busiest station along the southern border for the sector. It is one of the top 5 stations that are super busy. For us, this area is a very complex area, very high activity. It kind of neighbors Sunland Park, the community that's there. So it is very concerning to me because the community is so close to the border that there's so much activity happening. We have launched an operation called Operation Flex. We launched Operation Flex at the very beginning of this fiscal year with the sole purpose of trying to maintain a level of operational efficiency at the border, which means agents on active patrols right at the border, preventing the entry of people further into the United States and into the Sunland community because it is so close to the border. We have had a high number of entries at Santa Teresa. Like I said, to this fiscal year, 113,000 people have been encountered in this sector. 94,000 of those people have been Title 42. And we can elaborate later on Title 42 because it is a very important measure for us. But right now, Santa Teresa is one of my busiest stations in the sector.
Let's talk about how there's another troubling trend. Would you like to have a drink of water before? While I ask the question. The question here has to do mostly with the trend that we're seeing, which is vastly different from 2019, where the cartels are now taking over. The cartels are now actually charging the people that they're smuggling over, the migrants, and in many cases, at least based on what I've heard, or at least that we've been told, is that the children are also bringing drugs with them. Is there any truth to that? Are you seeing more drugs being brought over by migrants who want to pay off their debt to the cartels?
So that's a really good question. I think that what we are seeing right now, especially with the high activity in Santa Teresa, is that we have transnational criminal organizations not only utilizing migrants who are coming already in a group to make an entry, they're using them to bring across narcotics.
As mules.
As mules. And they don't have a choice. These poor migrants, they don't have a choice to say, no, I'm not going to take that drug across the border. They have to because they are threatened that if they don't take it, they could lose their life. So we have encountered migrants, even with fentanyl, being crossed across the border illegally, and we are seizing that drug. But after the interviews and the debriefs with these individuals, we come to find out that they had nothing to do with that smuggling of that narcotic. They were being threatened to smuggle it, and it's been confirmed. So our biggest concern is the mixture of how drug smuggling is now being mixed in as well with human smuggling as people are being forced to bring in narcotics between the ports of entry. The other thing that is very concerning to me, Saul, because I do adore this El Paso community, is our young adults, our youth in the El Paso community. They are being utilized as smugglers and mules as well for these organizations because they are recruiting kids to do the smuggling for them.
Here in El Paso?
Here in El Paso by driving the vehicles. They're driving the vehicles of people loading into cars and then driving at high speeds, disregarding the plea for law enforcement for them to stop, and then taking them further into the U.S. We have made a significant arrest of United States citizens, mostly young adults, that have done these smuggling acts along the border.
And so do they, the migrants, when they're carrying the drugs, do they immediately turn that over, or do you have to press on to determine whether or not they're bringing drugs over? And is it or do they admit that it's to pay off their debt to be smuggled into the U.S.?
No, many of the migrants, from what we get from them, is that they're being forced to bring in the narcotics across the border. But none of them have claimed that it's in order to pay a debt for the smuggling fee. Many of them have said, we're just being threatened that if we don't do it, something's going to happen to us. So we end up smuggling it. So I think it's more of fear and that they end up smuggling the narcotic, right? So we are seeing that tactic. It's very typical for criminal organizations to target an area that's very busy, like Santa Teresa. It is our busiest station in the El Paso region. And for us, it's very critical. That's why I have agents coming in from El Paso station to help out at STN. I have people from Xtra helping out at STN. It's a coalition of forces in El Paso to try and help so that we can bring a semblance of security and safety to that area, because we have that critical Sunland community right there.
In the 1 minute that I have left in this particular segment, I want to talk about the number of injuries that we're seeing over in Santa Teresa and Sunland Park. A lot of people are going all the way up to the wall, they're climbing the wall, and sadly being injured.
That is correct. So I think one of the biggest, critical, most concerning things for me is how people are still being encouraged by smugglers and guides to climb up that border barrier. That barrier in that area mostly is 30 foot. And they use ladders to get those people to climb up. Once the person is at the top of the barrier, they pull that ladder off and they tell the person, get off on the north side.
Left on their own.
And they're left on their own. Many people have fallen from the top of that barrier and significantly injured themselves. Many of them have been fatal. And we end up finding people just laying on the ground because the callousness of these smugglers has no end. They're going to continue to push these people to the very end, even to injure themselves fatally to make it across that border.
Okay, we're going to take another quick break. We'll continue our conversation with Chief Chavez. Another one aspect that I want to cover about all this is Title 42, which Chief Chavez, you just heard mentioned. What is it, and what would happen if Title 42 would be done away with? We'll be back.
Ashley Home Store's Memorial Day sale ends Monday. Last chance to save up to 30% off. Find this queen bed now only $4.99. Or get 0% interest for 6 years. Ends Monday at Ashley Home Store.
Go wherever your wild side takes you.
Right now, get $750 customer cash, or qualified lessees can lease the sophisticated new 2021 Highlander L for only $289 a month. Toyota, let's go places.
Delicious pizza on dough made fresh daily. New and classic games everyone loves. The post-match celebration. They're all made to be shared. Like our tasty 2 for $22 deal. Get 2 large, 1-topping handcrafted pizzas for just $22. Peter Piper Pizza. Pizza made fresh, families made happy.
Borderland Local Links is here to support local business. Scan the QR code on the screen to find out details about locally owned companies and make a connection with things that make life better. ABC-7 is the winner of the Regional Edward R. Murrow Award for Excellence in Technical Innovation. Experience our virtual museum, onecrazyyear.com. ABC-7 is the winner of the Regional Edward R. Murrow Award for Excellence in Technical Innovation. Experience our virtual museum, onecrazyyear.com.
It's the final days of Ashley Home Store's Memorial Day sale. This week, save up to 25% off your purchase. Or get 0% interest for 6 years. Don't miss it. Ends Monday at Ashley Home Store.
Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra Sunday Edition. Joining us again is Chief Chavez. Chief, let's talk about Title 42. We know that it is a health policy that Border Patrol agents to simply return many of the migrants. There's also talk, and it's the conversation is getting pretty louder, that President Biden might do away with Title 42. First of all, what is Title 42, and what would happen if it was done away with?
So great question. So Saul, thank you for asking about that because it's something that's been very concerning for many chiefs, not only myself, but all the rest of us on the southern border. One of the things that benefited us from Title 42, it's an authority, it's a public health authority because we had a public health issue with COVID-19. We got Title 42 authority May 20th of 2020 when we started seeing that the pandemic was affecting the United States, specifically our border region areas, right? Since the beginning of Title 42, it's been in place since March 20th of 2020, all the way up until today. Since then, we have encountered over 113,000 people. Out of those 113,000 people, 94,000 have been returned via Title 42 through a port of entry immediately back to Mexico. Those are called expulsions. So they've been expelled. Now, Title 42 does two things for us. It limits the COVID spread, not only into the community, but also among the detainees that we have in custody, as well as our workforce, which is critical to the mission that we do, right? And then secondly, it keeps our levels of capacity down at our central processing center and at border patrol stations. If Title 42 were to go away, we would go back to processing people just the same way that we processed before under Title 8, which is our immigration authority of how we've been doing business for many, many years. So the person, for example, under Title 42 gets encountered at the border, witnessed entry, at the border gets processed. We have modified our vehicles so that we can process via computer and identification process. We run records checks on the individual. If there is nothing, no pending warrants, no criminal history, that person is immediately expelled through the closest port of entry back into Mexico. We have had discussions with the government of Mexico, and by the way, we have a phenomenal relationship with them on both sides. I work very closely with Consul Ibarra here with the Mexican consulate, regular conversations. We have agreed that we would only expel through 3 ports of entry. There are 9 ports of entry in this region in El Paso and New Mexico that we cover. Only 3. Isleta, Paso del Norte, and Columbus are the only 3 ports of entry that we've expelled people. And that we do it under the agreement of local repatriations. In other words, it's not done during the nighttime after 10 p.m. Or during the dawn hours. We have to wait till the next morning. We hold people so that, especially the vulnerable population of children and families, don't get exposed, right, or to any type of aggressions or activity that could be harmful for them. So without Title 42, we are now going to be receiving people, transporting them to a central processing center or to a border patrol station, processing them for hours. Yeah. Getting coordinated with other agencies, and even to include possibly the NGOs, if in fact ICRO gets to full capacity. If we get to full, and that's going to be an immediate thing that probably could happen with us, to go to full capacity right away.
So would it be accurate to say that, of course, we saw the first wave, or at least the most recent wave in 2019, second wave 2021. If Title 42 were to be done away with, would we see a third surge?
We're expecting to see an increase of more people crossing through our region. I expect to have my centers, the processing center, over capacity within days. I expect the Border Patrol stations to be at full capacity as well. And then the critical work starts, right? To get the processing done as fast as possible, coordinate with ICRO for the transfer of a person over to their custody until they get at full capacity, and then work with our non-governmental organizations to try and get these people also transferred to an NGO so that we are not holding people for so long in a facility that could be exposed to COVID.
You were actually, we really appreciate how you reacted to the situation that happened over the Ecuadorian girls who were thrown over the wall. What has been the most shocking or astonishing thing that you've seen during this recent surge? Something that just stands out.
So that was very compelling. I will say the drop of the 2 little girls over that 14-foot barrier was very compelling because we had video footage of the actual act. Saul, these things happen all the time, but we rarely catch them in action, right? That day, it was fortunate that my agent had the camera focused in that section of the wall of the barrier, or in an area that is very desolate, very mountainous, very dirty, and rocky, because I was really worried about those 2 little girls. Sure. when they fell down. I thought it was done. So that in itself is such a compelling story. But I think what stays in my mind also are the rescues. You know, we've done so many rescues in the sector, over 126 rescues already in this sector. And I see pictures at times. I'm not there with my agents when they're making these rescues, but I remember an agent carrying a woman out in a condition that she was just very dire, right? And I think of the times if our agents wouldn't have encountered this human being, that person would probably, you know, they would have died. So to me, seeing pictures, there's a lot of things that the public doesn't see, that the public doesn't recognize or is aware of, that I get to see. And it's just very worrisome for me, because at the end of the day, we're in the business of national security, and we're gonna do it like the experts that we are. However, in between that business are human lives, right? And that's what's very concerning to me, that at times, the ones that really take a hit, or the ones that are really suffer the most, are the people being used as a commodity to get across that border.
In the 30 seconds that I have left, as you well know, the minute that President Biden took office, it was a cease and desist on the continued construction of the border barrier. What would happen if they were to do away with construction of the border barrier? Would that help, or would it make any difference at all?
So listen, border barrier for us is a critical tool. We've used border barrier for many, many years. For us, it continues to be, right? I know that this year there was a construction that was halted or paused for the completion of a 30-foot border barrier in this area. It was a system. It involved lights, it involved infrastructure, it involved cameras and technology. We're very excited about the technology, because that actually increases our capabilities to detect immediately with a greater efficiency, and we hope that we can still continue to improve upon that. But border barrier today, in areas that there are gaps, I'm now using manpower to provide that security. You know, we're a national security agency. Our concern are entries at the border between the ports of entry. We support legal migration through a port of entry. But between the ports, that's our job, to protect this country, protect the citizens of this country, and protect everyone on both sides of the border. Keep that border as safe and secure as we possibly can.
Continue the construction? And
continue the construction, or implement the barrier that we used to have there, so that we have a semblance of security, so that we don't have those entries in dangerous spots.
Chief Gloria I. Chavez, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us. And I want to thank you for permitting us into your homes. This has been ABC-7 Extra. I'm Saul Saenz. Good night y buenas noches.